Sorry, it's good.
You can see the bottom.
Yeah, it's the bottom. Yeah.
Hello. Oh, yeah. We have audio. Cool. Welcome to the last session of the day. This is called Phishing Past Mail Protection Controls using Azure Information Protection. So we will try to be short because we know you want to party afterwards. So do we. Okay, cool. So my name is Oddvar. I work as a red teamer for TrustedSec. Been doing that for the last year. I blog, I tweet, I hack, not necessarily in that order. So that's my Twitter handle and that's my blog right there.
All right, my name is Hans Laken. That's my bio, which is a lot thicker than what Oddvar had, but I do basically the same stuff, just not as well as he does.
All right, so what do we want to talk about? Azure Information Protection in particular. So the reason is because we had a really tough engagement where we kind of had trouble getting mails sent into the organization. So I started to try to create macros that sent data back to me so I could figure out what sort of sandbox environment they were having. And in that process, I started to think there should be a way to do something that just slipped past everything. So I ended up finding that I could use Azure Information Protection to encrypt files and send it away and bypass every sandbox, every mitigation they had, and it ended up in the inbox to the user. So that's the story behind it. We've also written a blog post about it, so if you want to have more details afterwards, there's a blog post at trustedsec.com. So we'll quickly cover what Azure Information Protection is, go over some of the licensing parts, also the features, and then we're going to cover a little bit about detections, and in the end, of course, exploits, how to use this to our advantage as attackers. So what is AIP? It's basically a way to label content and make things happen automatically. So meaning that if you label thing confidential, you can get Azure Information Protection to automatically encrypt the files or tag them in a special way. And the mechanisms behind is called Azure Rights Management Service, or Azure RMS. Back in the days when we didn't have clouds, we had something called Active Directory RMS. That's the same thing, just on-prem. And the problem with the on-prem was that in order for me to share RMS content with another organization, I had to basically federate with them in order to them to receive the content and decrypt it and stuff. So it was really difficult to implement this in a good way back in the days. So now we have the cloud, so everything is cloud-based. And it can basically be consumed by everyone. And it's free for everyone to consume RMS protected content. That's the part of the strategy for Microsoft. So if you send something to an end user, if the organization or the receiver has an Azure AD account, and most organizations do these days, so they single sign on and they open the document, it gets a licensing or a decryption key from the cloud. It decrypts it, and you can open it. And it doesn't trigger any additional pop-ups or whatever. If it doesn't have an Azure AD account, they are actually asked to create one. And you get a link, you click, and you open, it says you have to create an account in order to access this content. And the last is if the receiver is on a Gmail or a Hotmail or some specific services, they need to go to a special link. There's a cooperation there between Microsoft and the others to consume RMS content. If you want to know more about how the user experience is, there's a link at the bottom where it shows the different types of setups. So if you have an Azure AD account, it looks like this. If you don't have an Azure AD account, this is what the experience is like, and so on and so forth. Yes, so here are the different windows you will encounter when playing with Azure Information Protection. It's basically a client you install. Then you will get this little lockpad here, where you can protect the content in any way you want. It could be predefined, or it could be custom, and that's mostly what we use. We use custom. And here is the labels that I was talking about. That's how you label content. So you can label content either private or confidential or highly confidential, and you can have automatically actions based on those labels. But the clue with Azure Information Protection is, of course, to protect content no matter where it is. Because, like, traditionally, when we had file servers, we still do, we protect files by setting ACLs on folders so people doesn't get into the folder. For instance, we have an HR folder where only the group HR is allowed to get access to. But the problem is when someone from HR takes that file and sends it away on an email or puts it on a USB stick, everyone can open it because the rights doesn't go with the file. So that's the problem that Azure Information Protection is solving. Like, no matter where you open the file, the protection you set will always be with that file. So that's pretty awesome. Yeah, so here's a screenshot of the same file with and without encryption. So here's the size for the first part. You see the empty file is like 11 KB. When you protect it, it increases in size, of course, because it embeds a lot of information and it encrypts the files. So if you open the files in 7-zip, sorry, 7-zip, you can see that the content changes. So if you open this information here, you won't see anything. It's just random mess, basically. In an unencrypted file, you can still see the content, like with a notepad or whatever. So it's a beautiful thing. In terms of the file types that are supported, it's basically all Office files, XLS, XLSX, and so on. It also has support for other extensions, such as PDF, TXT, and the list is, yeah, you can see it here. The problem with the other extensions is that it changes the name of the file. So if the file is called file.txt, when you encrypt it with Azure Information Protection, it changes the extension to p.txt. And you can only open it using the Azure Information Protection client viewer. So that's useless for us as attackers unless they have the client and you're not sure. So that's, yeah, you have to be sure of that at least. PDF is an exception because when you send a Azure Information Protected PDF document, it will actually show it looks like a phishing page where you need to download an MSI file in order to enable a plugin. So that's something we want to further investigate later on, hopefully. All right. In terms of licensing and costs, there are basically 3 levels. You have the standard you get with a normal Office 365 license. I'm not a license expert, but basically this is what you get if you have the normal E3 license with Office 365. You get all the way up to document tracking and revocation. You don't get those last features unless you have Premium 1 or Premium 2. So if you want tracking, you need the premium editions. There are some details on their blog. It's really good document, basically. Every feature, what sort of level you need of license in order to get the different features. In terms of costs, a normal E3 license, at least when I checked it, was $20 a user. And if you want Premium 1, it's an additional $6 per user. If you want Premium 2, it's an additional $9. So, yeah. And as I said at the bottom here, ask your licensing advisor, because I'm not a licensing advisor. I hack stuff. Right, so features are basically tracking. That's really cool when you send a phish and you can actually see if someone tried to open the document. We also got a demo of that in the end. So I can see if the email itself was opened or viewed. I can also see when a user authenticates and tries to open the payload itself. I can see if it was a success or if it failed. So if someone from the IR response team is trying to reverse it, I can see that they are denied access, for instance. So that's pretty useful. And also, of course, the main feature that we use it for is for encryption of payloads and emails. Right, I think I'll hand it over to Hans.
For the detection?
I can cover that. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so in terms of detection, there's if you unzip the file, there's actually a clue inside one of the files that will tell you the tenant ID. So that's pretty useful in terms of when you're investigating. If you get such a document and you need to further do response on it, you can at least find the tenant ID, and that's useful. Yeah. In terms of blocking it or getting an alert, you can, in exchange, you can create something called a transport rule. And that's basically all I have found that you can use. So basically there's an option here called content can't be inspected. So you can create an alert if Exchange cannot inspect the content, and that's typical when you have Azure Information Protected documents because it's encrypted. So you can get it to trigger an alert, or you can get it to trigger an action like blocking it or quarantining it or whatever. So that's the best advice I have, at least. So yeah, cool.
All right. One of the things that we didn't mention too much in here is document revocation. So if you're doing a phishing campaign and you know it's burned or whatever, you just know that it is, you can literally revoke the documents so that way no one else can open it. Even the legitimate user who was initially authorized can open it anymore, which is great. Like say you land it once, you don't need to have them click it again, just revoke it. Anyway, so we have a few demos here of what this looks like in action. And okay. So here we are. Nope, that's the wrong one. Nope. How do we close that? Remind me later. Can you hold this back?
I can hold this for you all day long.
All right, so here we have a regular document. In this situation here, we've are logged in to Office on a workstation with an account that has the Premium 2 version of AIP. And we also have the client as well. The client is needed in order to install or run this action to encrypt the document. So it adds in a function when you right-click to classify and protect. As Oddvar mentioned on the top there, you can set the classification manually if you want. In this case, we're not going to use it, but what we are going to do is go protect with custom permissions. And the permissions that we have here are view, reviewer, co-author, or sorry, view, edit, view only, and so forth. In our case, we only want them to view the content. We don't want them to do anything else beyond that. And you can specify the email address that you want to send to. In this case here, we just set up a domain in O365 AIP demo. But again, as Oddvar mentioned, this can be at Gmail, this can be at whatever domain that you want. In this case, it's going to be an Office customer or tenant. Last thing to note is that you can also set the expiration. So that way, even if you yourself forget to revoke the document, you can have it automatically fail to open at a certain date. And that's it. So that's how you encrypt it. And this here is how you would send a document in that situation. So now the document has been encrypted. We're sending it to a guy named receiver with a convincing open me. You can attach the file just fine, no issues whatsoever. All right, so we've attached our totally safe doc. Now, one thing we wanted to point out here is we have the ability to do not forward, which is great because when you send this phish to the target, we don't want them forwarding it onto the team that would actually do the incident response. This will disable on their client their ability to forward this attached email.
So cool.
It's a picture. It's Microsoft.
All right, so this error message here, it's just talking about the permissions related to it. It's like, here's a warning for it. So are you okay? You want to do this? Yeah, we are. And sure enough, it goes ahead and sends it. All right, so now we have in this demo here a situation where the document has been moved from the recipient's email, maybe via USB stick or network share, to the incident response team that doesn't have the legitimate credentials to open it. What does it look like for them? So they'll open the doc just by double clicking on it. Microsoft goes and checks or realizes that it's protected, attempts to communicate with a server saying, hey, who has rights to do this? Asks Oddvar to enter his credentials. Now he's not the recipient, so it's going to fail. It's checking, and boom, you're not authorized to access this document. So this is what any IR person would receive when they tried investigating this document, interacting with it normally. If they try to run it through like ViperMonkey or any of those other tools, they're not going to get anything either, because again, it's encrypted.
They need to log on as a user.
Yeah, they need to be the legitimate user or recipient to view it. All right, so this is the last one I want to show you guys here. So if you do open it legitimately, it just opens like another doc if they're logged in. If they're not logged in, they'll prompt them to log them just like he did before, and then just continue on forward. And we have 10 minutes left, so this will be quick. All right, so last thing here I want to show you is that we have two documents, AIP demo message box and AIP demo message box protected. These are the exact same document. However, one is protected, the other one is not. So they have the same malware or the same VBA in there. And what I wanted to show you guys is what ends up happening. Oh, no, sorry, last one. Sorry, before this one. The tracking feature, sorry. So we have, when you right-click and view and protect, this is the same window that you saw before with the settings and so forth. We also have the ability to view the file permissions that you currently have set. And you can only do this because you're the owner of the file. Other people would not be able to see this. And we see that the owner is user sender and what rights they have, okay?
Whoa. Party's getting started.
Oh, is that really awesome? All right. But here's what happens when you actually choose the tracking. So we have the document here. It brings you to the website, and you actually see all the documents owned by this user. So I'm logged in as a sender right now. As a viewer or recipient, you do not have access to this portal. Only the document creator has this. You can see how many times it's been viewed, how many times access has been denied, and how long has it been since the last activity on that document.
It's so cool.
All right, so we can see the people who have attempted to authenticate to this document and the actual access that's happened. So we can see that Oddvar and his different mailing addresses failed to open the document, and the last one where it was successful. So not only do you get to see who did it and who opened it and who failed to open it, but when it happened. Now you have new targets, yeah. That's awesome.
Don't send it to me, please.
It also has a timeline built in. If any of you guys use GoFish, I mean, this is great. It's just like how many people have clicked it over time. You even have a map of where they tried to log in to access it. So we can see Oddvar in Norway attempted to access this document. And you also have the ability to get notified when people attempt to open the document, or if they were successful in opening the document, if they failed in opening the document, or just not get notified at all. So you can get notified when someone actually opens your fish. Yay.
It's a beaut.
All right, so this last video here, what we did is we took the same document, just duplicated it, called one protected, one not protected. And what we're going to do is we're going to upload both into VirusTotal, and we're going to show you the results just based off of that litmus test of what you can expect when doing this. So we're going to go ahead and classify protect. I feel like we're in Norway.
Oh, yeah. Then we would be drunk.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
All right, so we protected our document.
Yeah.
We're going to go ahead and upload it by trying to drag and drop.
It fails.
Because I don't know HTML5. All right, so this is the normal one that will get flagged a ton. And this tab here, the second tab, is our protected one. So it's going to go ahead and chew through it. On our malicious one, sure enough, it's going to light up. I think we ended up with 31 detections. And this is your basic message box that you'd see from Metasploit. Whereas the protected one, nothing. Zero detections. Just fine. So that's it. That's our demonstration. Thank you. If you guys have any questions. Oh, sorry. One last thing we wasn't asked, I mentioned. Competitors. So Google has a similar function. They have the ability to send confidential information. It does not encrypt attachments, but it does keep it so only authorized people can open it and can't be forwarded. It doesn't have a cool dashboard. No. Okay, sure. Yep. Oh, and so when you do receive it, an email, what ends up happening is it says, you got an email, do you want to open it? Yes, you click view. And they have the ability to, what ends up happening is that when you click the link, a new window opens up in the browser, and then it proxies the link that you actually are using as your phishing campaign. So the initial email doesn't have the link. Once you are authorized, you have to kind of go through steps by steps. It does have the ability to go the other direction in the sense that Gmail can send to an O365 user, and it signs in via OAuth. So you don't have to be an O365 user to open a protected document from Gmail. All right, that's the last one, and now we have questions.
Any questions? Stand up behind me so I can teach you on the mic and pass the mic back and forth. Hand it back so I can hand it back to them.
Okay. Is it smart enough to know if I remove the email from a user's mailbox that, like, 'cause you said it disables, like, you can't forward it. So if one of my users forwarded it to me, said, hey, this looks wonky, and I go in and remove the email, which pulls it out of their mailbox, puts it into a dump mailbox, it's still to the user. Would the security team be able to open it?
Hold your response.
So you have to authenticate as that user in order to open it at all. That's the whole point. So you have to log into that as that actual user in order to open it. That's the beauty of it. Because that's how it works.
Just like confidential data, you don't want unauthorized people to open it.
Yeah.
So I saw on the Outlook client, you could click don't forward. Is there a way to do this via PowerShell? Because this makes sense for like a red team engagement when we're sending just targeted attacks. But if we're sending it to like 50 people, sending 50 emails is pretty tricky.
Yeah, I mean, you can initiate like a COM object for PowerShell as a process, and you can like create emails and put on whatever you want. So yeah, you can for sure do that with PowerShell.
So you guys showed that all Office docs won't get renamed or anything like that. Is there any notification to the user that they've received an AIP encrypted attachment other than the authentication box that pops up?
So what you're asking is, do you get an alert as an admin or?
No, as a user.
As the user, do they know?
Oh, yeah. So okay. There are two things that give it away. So if you protect an email, there's a padlock in the inbox. When we send a fish, it makes it look more legit, I think, because it's in the inbox subject field. We don't have a picture of that. Sorry. So that's the thing that gives it away. And also when you open it, it starts the pop-up box that says configure RMS. So that kind of gives it away. And also you cannot preview it in Outlook. Yeah. So if you single click and try to preview it, it will say it's blocked because you need to open it in order to decrypt it, basically. So yeah.
No error messages or warnings.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice presentation. Question, just to clarify, what was the content label that is the attribute to force secure encryption, and that's transmission and storage, or one or the other?
He's talking about this here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, right there. Yes.
So you want to know if I can't remember the defaults, but I think if you use confidential, I think it's
or higher.
that or higher. I think it's encrypted both the content and also in transit, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm not 100% sure, so you have to look it up. But it's a guide on Microsoft where you can look it up, so it shouldn't be hard to find.
So what's great is once you get the licensing for it, you can create your own, and you can create whatever rules you want to do based off of that. So this is all the stuff that's baked in, but if you want to go overboard, you can.
Yeah, in addition to that, if you have a file server and you have Premium 1 or 2, you can also automate the labeling and protection on file servers as well. So if someone tries to steal a document, it automatically is protected when someone tries to grab it. No, from the file server. You establish an extension on the file server, and you're able to protect it from within the file server. Yeah.
Since the attacker has to have an Outlook account or Microsoft account, how would a threat hunting team basically report that to Microsoft and shut them down?
So how do you, okay, I'm not sure. You have to, let's see, you have to, in order to you have to block it, basically. That's, I'm not sure how to, I would block the interesting. I'm not sure. How would you respond?
It's unblockable.
Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, you can go into the document and see the tenant ID, but I don't know if you have to decrypt it in order even to see that in the first place.
You can unzip it and see that.
And see the tenant ID. So maybe you could report it through like an abuse. But yeah, I mean, it's a phishing email. Yeah. Yeah. Let them deal with it. I love that.
Good question, though.
How difficult is it to rotate AIP for different campaigns, for different domains that you're using?
Oh, so you have two answers. So I think from an OPSEC perspective, I think I would create a new tenant each time. But it's a lot of work, but still the tenant ID is in the emails, so if someone snags that and reports it, it could get blocked. If you want to rotate, I think you can bring your own key, so you can like rotate the key at least. Other than that, it's basically just domains that you use, or do you have anything?
Yeah, what he said as well, but if you've done any licensing assignment in Azure, when you create a user, you can create different licenses that apply to that user. So what we've done is we'll get a license for like maybe 4 or 5, and then we'll just unassign to that user and reassign to a new user and so forth, and just reapply the license or the subscription when needed. So you don't need to get 20 or 40 or 50 user license, just get a small set and just remove when you need.
Does that change the tenant ID?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
Have you tried to monkey with the tenant ID or anything in the file, or I'm assuming it probably would break it?
I think so. I'm not sure. That's a good thing to investigate, but I think if you manipulate too much in the file, you will invalidate the signature somehow. But that could possibly be a thing you could do or try. I haven't looked at it, but that's a good suggestion. Thanks. Okay, we'll wrap it up. If there's any more questions, just grab us.
Yep.
Thanks.
We'll be around. Thank you.